Welcome in, belly up, have a seat and grab a drink as we talk some Wingman Fantasy Football. Welcome into another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Furley, and as always, I'm joined by my good pal here, Bernie, a.k.a. Team B.
Cuban B. Yes, Cuban B.
How are you doing today, Bernie?
I am doing saucy, Michael. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. So this is going to be episode 89, and we are going to go over our risers and fallers as we approach our fantasy football drafts. But before we get any further along, let's make sure that everybody is in the room.
Wingmen assemble!
All right, now that everyone is here, I'd like to thank you all so very much for joining us one more time. And I've got a question for you, Mr. Bernie. Are you excited as our official Wingman Fantasy Football League fantasy draft will be this Sunday, Labor Day weekend, September 1st? How excited are you?
I am so excited that I'm going to get on the road early tomorrow, and it's going to be 482 miles to victory.
Oh, okay. You know, you can't win your league in your draft, but you can definitely lose it.
This is true. This is very true.
And don't lose it on draft day again.
I think last year I got the F grade, and I finished middle of the road. So, you know, you could always make up a bad grade.
Okay. All right. So before we get into our risers and fallers, let's get into some league news. All right, starting off with CeeDee Lamb has signed his 4-year contract extension worth $136 million, and $100 million has been guaranteed. And also staying with the Cowboys for now, a little less exciting, but Dalvin Cook has signed with the Dallas Cowboys, muddling up the backfield for the boys. It's going over to San Francisco. Another NFC favorite, Elijah Mitchell, has been placed on season-ending IR, creating an opening for one of the most coveted running back handcuff spots out there. Also, A.J. Dillon of the Packers has also been placed on season-ending injured reserve. Of course, that means his season is over. Leaving Josh Jacobs a boatload of carries going forward. Another big-time receiver, Jamar Chase, has not yet signed his contract extension, and it's starting to look like they're playing a game of chicken between Chase and the Bengals front office. Another big-name receiver, Brandon Ayuk, Hadouken, has reached a deal to stay in San Francisco. He has signed a 4-year, $120 million deal. All right, sorry. I'm a little indulgent right now. Sorry about that. Anyway, we've got a pair of Broncos that were cut on Tuesday as both running back Samaje Perine and wide receiver Tim Patrick were cut casualties for the Broncos. However, Perine has since signed with the Kansas City Chiefs, and Tim Patrick has signed with the Detroit Lions, starting out on their practice squad, but anticipating moving up into the active roster sooner than later. Also, we have Puka Nacua. Has been declared all systems go for week 1. And in New Orleans, Kendre Miller will start the season on IR, but he has been designated to return. However, Miller will miss at least the first 4 games of the season. And in an interesting move here, we have Taylor Heineke has been traded from the Falcons to the Chargers. Does this mean they are worried about the potential health of Justin Herbert? We discuss more after this. All right. So let's get over some of that news there. And I went through a lot real quick. We have some big signings. Some holdouts are finally over. What do you think about some of this news we went over here, Mr. Bernie?
I think it's exciting. I think San Francisco is finally getting their things together. Mason is going to be a high handcuff. I agree. High priority handcuff. Outside of that, though, you know, Jamar Chase, really suspect being really high up there on that draft board. So
we did our mock draft the last time, and we had news that he was going to play week 1. And since then, it's been almost the reverse kind of sentiment, meaning we'd probably been more likely the way I've been seeing it from the shows I've been listening to and mock drafts I've been seeing,
Yep.
Jamar Chase seems like a value at that 6, 7, 8 pick. But if the question mark is just too big, Amon-Ra St. Brown is just a safe guy to take in that same range. Maybe not quite the upside. It's debatable, but he's definitely the safer pick going into the start of the season.
I wouldn't call him safer necessarily. I think safe it gives a negative connotation. I think Amon-Ra is a reliable,
A more consistent player. I
clutch
got you.
player. Yeah.
Gotcha. That's fair. I can agree with that. All right. So Brandon Ayuk staying in San Francisco is very big. Like you said, that keeps their team moving along. Puka Nacua, all systems go. That is great news. And Kendre Miller, we thought he was banged up, but that just Alvin Kamara is going to be just holding it down between him, Jamal Williams, and Taysom Hill.
Yeah, it could be a little bump up for Taysom and some snap count there. But
All right.
I think the news kind of really segues nicely into the risers and fallers.
Yes. Before, actually, we have a little more news. These are players that are on the pup list. These are our sad, sad puppies.
Wingman Fantasy Football. Sad, sad puppy.
These are players who are going to start the season on the pup list. All right, that was a bad joke. Anyways, so this.
Oh, wait! I got a question.
Sure.
What is PUP? What does that stand for?
Players unable to perform. So the rule is here.
Do they need hymns? Is this like a hymns commercial?
Yeah, maybe. You get discreet packaging, guys. It's all right. Just go ahead and order the stuff you need. So for all you guys who may or may not know, before the season starts, any player can be placed on the PUP list prior to them being activated at all. And in the preseason, they can be taken off that PUP list at any time. But once you're off of it, you can't go back on it. So if you're on the PUP list at the start of the regular season, you must miss a minimum of 4 games. Once again, you can't be put onto the PUP list from active. If you get hurt, it's a different designation. But if you've never practiced yet this year, you can go on the PUP list. And then once the season starts, you have to miss 4 games. So let's get into some of the players that are going to start on the PUP list and or are going to miss a minimum of 4 games. Starting off here with Nick Chubb, TJ Hawkinson, Jonathan Brooks, Keaton Mitchell, Tyler Higbee, who still plays for the Rams, and Odell Beckham Jr., this scam artist, my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
These guys are all on the PUP list, meaning they're going to miss at least the first 4 games of the season. What do you think about these players, Mr. Bernie?
So I like almost all of those players except for the one down in Miami. It's one of those things, man. Just my team just can almost get through the door, but they've just got something, hitting that door frame every single year. But we'll get into it.
Okay. All right.
It'll get into our deep player thoughts here.
So I just mentioned 6 players on the PUP list here. There are 3 guys here I'd be willing to draft to be my IR slot holder for that first 4 weeks in Chubb, Hawkinson, and Brooks.
Yep.
I know you had Keaton Mitchell last year. I don't know how long he's going to be out. He did have a pretty bad injury middle to late of the year, so I'm thinking he's going to miss at least 6 to 8 weeks, although that is I'm speculating to some degree. Does Keaton Mitchell make that as a draftable player who you would hold on to for that amount of time in your IR spot, or does it stop at Jonathan Brooks for you in that top 3?
It would probably be stopping at Jonathan Brooks.
Okay.
I'd have to see him come back out. Chubb is the guy though. Chubb's got the big highlighter circled on his name with what round in your draft he's going to go at and when you think you need to pull that trigger.
Yep. And as we noticed before in that mock draft, it seems like if you want him, round 8 or 9 is going to be the time that you're going to have to pull the trigger if you want even a chance to get him. Otherwise, you're seeing what value might fall to you, and if he's still there in the 10th or 11th. But if you want him, it's going to be 8th or 9th for sure. I would say is a pretty safe bet. All right. So now with that, all that being said, let's get into our risers and fallers. We're going to go back and forth here, one at a time here. So why don't you start us off with your first? Oh, let me start this off. These could be risers in a couple of different ways. These could be players that have risen up our personal ranking boards, i.e. Bernie's board or my own, or players that we've noticed are rising up in ADP, irregardless of how we think about them. And we can talk about if we think that's a good trend, a bad trend, or what say you. So go ahead and start off with your first riser, Mr. Bernie.
Well, let's just stay in Cleveland then, and it's kind of a middle to late round. He's an RB2, but Jerome Ford, I think, with the Browns releasing their running back Deonta Foreman, and I believe they re-signed him back
They
to the
did.
practice squad.
Yes.
Without him being there as that third back, I think Ford is going to have a lot more snaps. He's going to be involved in a lot more of the game until Chubb gets back. So I think if you're able to snag both of those guys, that Cleveland run game is going to be solid.
And as we noticed in our last mock draft, and again, it's not gospel, but he went in the 12th round. He was way after some of these other prospective running backs. So just to be safe, you could say he's a 10th round, maybe 9th round if you really want him. But that's a guy who's going to start for a minimum of 4 weeks as Chubb.
Yeah.
We're not sure when he's coming back for sure, but we know he's definitely not coming back within that first 4 games.
Exactly. And I think his signing bonus is set up to he's got to hit week 5 or week 6. He's got some sort of restructured signing bonus for this year. So
is that Chubb or Ford?
That's Chubb. No, that's Chubb.
Okay.
So I think he's got to be able to play. He's got to be able to play 12 games. I think.
Okay. Oh, because he restructured his deal. That's right. That's right.
So we definitely you have a starting running back getting drafted that late. His stock should go up. I consider him a riser.
Okay. All right. Very good. So I'm going to do a quick, well, actually I got an extra riser here I didn't tell you about. So this guy I've noticed in our mock draft, which again, that particular draft board, the Primetime Draft app was picking rookie receivers like crazy, way higher than most of us would thought. But I've noticed this in a lot of the mock drafts since that Marvin Harrison is now, maybe with Puka Nacua being slightly banged up and Jahmyr Gibbs, he has been steadily moving up into that first round. I've seen him go in that 10th, 11th pick more often than not. Are you surprised that Marvin Harrison Jr. is now pretty steady into that first round as one of the later receivers of that round?
I have seen that as well. I mean, I've seen him in the conversation as the top 6 within the top 6 receivers, and I was like, what's going on here? I am surprised, just because he's a rookie. He must have shown these teams something to make him kind of rise that far. So I actually have him going the opposite way, I believe, on my board here. I originally had him about 2 iterations ago on my draft board as 11 overall. No, I'm sorry, wide receiver 11, and now I have him as a wide receiver 14.
Okay. Oh wow. So he's dropping for you.
Yeah.
I had him at
wide receiver 13. So he's dropped a couple spots for me.
Yeah, I had the last that I have on paper here was overall 19th pick, so middle second round. And I haven't thought too much about him. People are moving up and down around him, but he's stayed kind of in that spot for me.
Yeah. And I think I have him moving down because I think the non-stat, the hype factor, that's a lot of pressure to put on that kid. So.
Okay. So that was I was surprised we got that much out of that because I just kind of saw the last minute. But the big riser, and we're going to start at the top of the draft again, or near top.
Yeah.
Josh Jacobs going from potentially 4th rounder, an easy 3rd rounder. I've now seen him jump ahead of the Derrick Henry Pacheco group, or at least he's in that group. He is now a middle of the 2nd round to late 2nd round. You'll be lucky to get him as on the turn of the 2-3 turn. He is skyrocketing, and it all makes complete sense. He's moving up my board as well. I haven't put it to paper yet, but in my head, it's clear. Let's talk about what makes him move up that board. Go ahead and give us some reasons why Josh Jacobs is skyrocketing in the market right now.
Well, I think the number one reason is A.J. Dillon. You just mentioned it. He's placed on injured reserve. I think Emmanuel Wilson, he's the guy that's going to take his place on the depth chart. He just doesn't have experience. So I think they're just going to really rely on Josh Jacobs. And I think probably he was in that tier for me with like Mixon, Ken Walker, Rashid White. I think he's bumped up a little bit now. So he's probably coming out of the 4th and 5th round, possibly into the 3rd round.
Also, so going into this cut day this past week, the thought was that AJ Dillon had a short-term stinger, which is a kind of vague injury, but something you just kind of monitor and work your way through it. Right. But Marshawn Lloyd, the other, I think he's a rookie, but the other backup running back was going to be put on the IR to miss weeks. But since they since Dillon got put on the season-ending IR and they don't have enough guys that are hurt, he's going to stay on the active roster, but the odds are he's not going to be active for the first 2, 3, maybe even up to 4 games still. He's not officially like on a designation that will keep him out 4 games, but he was expected to be put on that list, meaning he's not healthy. So that just, like you said, that makes Emmanuel Wilson as the only running back of note on the roster, and like he's even a later round rookie who's just I'm not saying he's not good. He could sneak around, but the guys they had planned on helping Jacobs on the load there are not available. And like you said, that just, I mean, it's a numbers game, and he's a solid player on a solid offense, and now he's got all the work. It's Josh Jacobs is going to be it's interesting. We're going to see if the real day drafts catch up to this news or not, or if they think it's worth it. But I mean, just all the arrows are pointing up for Josh Jacobs.
Yeah. Now your memory is a little better than my memory when it comes to stats and whatnot. I'm a little hazy sometimes. Was it a few years ago that did Josh Jacobs win a rushing title, or was
that was 2 years ago?
2 years ago, and he was the workhorse. Like they ran him into the ground. Right?
Well, that was the idea. He had I think it was, I could be mistaken to some degree. Yep. It was like it was maybe the last year of his rookie deal before the 5th year option,
right?
Give or take. And they didn't sign him to an extension, so the idea was like they were going to run him into the ground because they didn't care. They weren't going to pay him. They ended up bringing him back on that option last year,
right?
Or he held out. Remember, he held out.
Yep,
I think
he held out,
but he didn't get a long-term deal.
Doing the same thing Chase is doing, pretty much.
Right? Yeah. Right. So, and he was okay last year, but 2 years ago, yes, he was the rushing leader, and that year he was awesome. Had a ton of long runs.
Yeah, but he had the ball. He always had the ball, which I think is going to mimic this year. First year, new team. Give him the ball. So
exactly. All right. So what else who else do you have for a riser?
For a riser, let's see who we got here. Let's see here. I've got Chuba Hubbard. So we've got Jonathan Brooks was placed on the NFI list. So I think Chuba Hubbard was probably going to get a little bump there. Is coming off of ACL surgery, so we kind of want to see where he's at. So not too high, but definitely a bump for that. Jonathan Brooks was looking like he was going to get drafted a little bit higher. So it's kind of like a sliding scale there. Jonathan Brooks going down as Chuba Hubbard is going up.
So it looks like to me that your risers are guys after you found out the official news of these guys missing time, that these more established, we would almost determine as backup style running backs, but they've had starting experience due to injury from the year previous.
Exactly.
They're going to keep the job, and you're going to ride them for these first couple of weeks. I got a question for you with these types of players.
Yep, go for it.
So their value right now is that first 4 weeks, give or take a week or two on the other end, depending on the player, of course. Yep. So are these players, the way I look at it, these players really only have value if you're planning on even using them in those first 4 weeks or a chance to use them. So these are like perfect guys if you're going 0 RB, for example. If you draft 4 running backs and then you're 5th, they're not worth it. You're almost better off grabbing Brooks or Chubb than grabbing Ford or Hubbard if you already have 3 or 4 running backs on your team when it comes to picking those guys.
Yeah, exactly. I think because in our league, we have to do 1 RB for sure. I think that you're kind of waiting. You're kind of seeing it again, it depends on your pick as well. Like for me, I'm pick 9 in our league. As of now, I've got Jahmyr Gibbs is probably where that kind of is going to be falling towards me. So if I'm going to be getting a top tier running back early, I probably might not pick up this guy just because I'm going to play Jahmyr Gibbs over him for the first couple weeks anyway. So there's no value in that for me. But like you said, if I'm going wide receiver, quarterback, another quarterback, who knows? We saw in our mock draft, we were getting 2 sets of quarterback back-to-back picks. So, then yes, now I'm looking at these late round RBs, these Jerome Fords, these Chuba Hubbards, late round stuff.
So these 2 players definitely have value. They're definitely rising, but they almost have like a specific niche of value as players that will get you through the first couple of weeks while you figure out some of your other deficiencies if you have them on your team.
Exactly. So now the trick is though, if you can get Chuba Hubbard and Nick Chubb, because you might not want to do you might not be able to get Ford and Chubb.
Right.
if you can do that, so that would be a nice little benefit to it.
I've thought about this a little bit. I haven't heard his name this year, but he was signed to a big deal last year. Do you think Miles Sanders has any chance to get any playing time for the Panthers here?
Oh, good gosh.
I could see him being a very sneaky. All like he's the one playing ahead of Chuba Hubbard. I haven't heard his name. There's no indication. He's on the team. He wasn't cut, and he still has his contract.
Yeah, I think it might come down to you might be that manager that is cursing Miles Sanders' name, like the managers that had Chuba Hubbard last year were cursing his name. So I think it's kind of going to be like a role reversal there. So,
all right.
Yeah, and I remember Reggie. I think Reggie had him, and Reggie was not happy with Chuba Hubbard. So,
all right. So another riser I have on my list. We're kind of working the opposite direction. I'm working from the top of the draft. He's working from the bottom. We'll meet in the middle by the end of this.
Yeah,
I've got Rashee Rice. It came out today. I forgot to put it in the news that pretty much it's hard to say that he's not going to be suspended. It's hard to say that as a definitive. But the thing is that the phrasing is they're going to let the legal process play itself all the way through before they make a decision. He's not like going to be on those like a commissioner exempt lists where they're like, this is so bad, we're gonna have you sit out while we figure it out. They're gonna let him play while the legal process takes hold here. And
right.
Who knows exactly when that'll end, but you know the way these things go, there's always appeals and such. So I remember the one year Ezekiel Elliott was going to have I think it was 2017-ish. Mm-hmm. He was going to have a suspension early in the year, and it got pushed back similarly, and then he got suspended once the process ended, and it was like after Thanksgiving, give or take, or Christmas. So there is a chance if he now gets suspended, it's going to be the second half of the year. But you know how these legal processes play out. There's a chance that this thing's going to go into December, January, and with a potential appeal, he might be good to go for this year. At least he seems like he's going to be good to go for the second part of the year. And the reason why I think this is more important, one, he's a solid player on a superstar offense.
Oh yeah.
But the thought that he was going to be suspended was baked into his ADP all off season. So this guy's ADP does not reflect where he could be drafted. So this is one of those guys. Don't just look at your sheets. Scroll down a little bit, make a little note or a little symbol or something. Like when if you're in your third, fourth, fifth round, I don't know how high he's going to go at this point, but definitely a fourth or fifth round. And you don't like the receivers, don't just go to the next position. Scroll down a little further if you haven't printed out your personal rankings, because Rashee Rice is going to be off the board of where he's going to go. So keep that in mind. That's why I put him more of a riser, is because his situation, what we thought was baked in a certain way, seems to be resolved, at least at the moment. And so now his value that no one ever thought of is going to be there on draft day.
Right. So who else is catching out there? Hollywood Brown's out there now. He's still a little dinged up. He's going
to miss a couple more weeks still at least.
Okay. Is Smith-Schuster still out there?
Oh, that's right. That didn't make the news. Juju, because the Chiefs have been signing some of their old players. They cut Kadarius Toney. I didn't know how much this stuff was important. They cut Toney and brought back in Juju Smith-Schuster, who was the leading receiver for the Chiefs the last time he played for that team 2 seasons ago. Yep. So now he went from their number 1 receiver to their number 3 or 4 receiver. So that might bolster their overall receiver room. But of course, they have Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy to fill out that receiving core.
Yeah, so that would be my only concern with depending on where you would want to pick up Rice. Is he's going to be sharing a lot of snaps. He's going to be sharing a lot of targets. So it just, even the new rookie tight end. I can't think of his name off the top of my head right now, but he's supposed to be kind of coming in hot as well. So KC's got a lot of parts, and I do want to have some of KC's parts. So if I didn't get any of the top good parts, then and Rice is there, I think I might pick him up.
All right. Who else do you have that's rising? We got a couple more, I think.
Rising. I got a big one that's falling.
You want me to do one more riser here? I guess.
Yeah, one more.
How many risers do you have left? Are you done with your risers?
Yeah, I'm done with my risers.
All right, I got 2 more then.
Oh wait, no, sorry. We probably have the same one. Mason.
Yeah, let's do him. We can do him now if you want. Go ahead.
So I've got Mason going up a little bit.
This is Jordan Mason, the backup running back for San Francisco.
Yep. He's definitely a handcuff now for sure. Elijah Mitchell out on a season-ending injured reserve. So we got McCaffrey at the top spot, but nobody else really behind him.
They do have a rookie. I think is I don't have it memorized. I think it's Isaac Garendo or something very similar to that. So there is another rookie on that team.
Yeah.
San Francisco is very sneaky sometimes. The guy you think is going to take over, and then the no-name guy is the one who actually gets it. So I'm just keep that in mind. But Jordan Mason is poised to be the handcuff going into the season. He's going to be he should be drafted, and you keep an eye on the rookie Isaac Garendo just in case there's some shuffling going on.
Exactly. And then the other kind of hiccup is McCaffrey's calf injury. I'm not worried about it. If I had the number one spot, which I don't, Katie, King George does, and King George should be drafting Christian McCaffrey. So, but it's still a calf injury. So, and he's a back. So if that thing flares up after the first game, that this makes Mason a priority, a priority pickup.
So the calf injury for McCaffrey is scary just by its words, but the fact they're giving him so much time to heal is good. Yep. It's one of those things like you rush him back, it adds another 2-3 weeks, let it heal. You know what I mean? And so that in a way it's scary because you haven't seen him back on the field, but the fact they're taking so much time is actually in a weird way it is settling.
Right. So and he's kind of the guy you're filling out bench spots with. What about what pick are you starting to fill out your top priority bench spots? Are you talking like 10th round? Are you talking like 11th, 12th round?
It's hard to say. It kind of depends on who's available and what's going on there.
Yeah.
I tend, and people, you guys notice and either laugh at me, I'd rather pick up if there's a kicker or defense that I want. Some years are more obvious than others.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a kicker or defense I want, I'd rather go ahead and get them in that 9th, 10th, 11th round area, even though it seems early. Right. You have no competition for the pick there because no one else is doing that. And then on the latter rounds, that 12th, 13th, 14th round, everyone's getting their kickers and defense, and now you're not competing getting the running backs or receivers. At that point, they're all dart throws. Who cares which dart you throw? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and the interesting thing is everyone drops their last receiver drafted after week 1. So if I'm dropping my last receiver and he's my 14th pick, and you drop your last receiver and he's your 11th round pick, now I just upgraded by picking up your last receiver over my last receiver.
Yeah, this is very true, unless it's a sabotage drop.
Yeah,
Kyle Pitts.
All right, I've got one more sneaky. It's surprising riser here. I think just because he's like almost invisible on ADP and draft boards, but I think he's going to be solid, not special, but solid for a quarterback who's going to need someone solid. I think Deontay Johnson's got a sneaky chance. I think he's, instead of being a 10th round pick, I think he deserves to be that like 8th round pick. So to me, he's a personal riser. I don't know how high to take him and what tier he's quite in yet. I don't have that paper in front of me, but when it comes down to like dart throws of guys like, this would be a comparison. I'm going to ask you right here. Would you have Deontay Johnson, for example, or DeAndre Hopkins? That's kind of like the range I think Johnson deserves to be talked about.
For this draft, that's a tough one. That's a toss up. I would any other draft I would probably say Hopkins right off the bat, but this one he hasn't really excited me. So maybe Johnson. Yeah, maybe.
I'm saying, but you wouldn't have thought that.
No,
4 weeks ago.
No, definitely not. Yep. I agree with that.
So I just think he's not someone you're targeting, but I think when it comes down to like that value, like, oh, this tier's gone, like, or whatever, or like, I don't like these quarterbacks here, I need to fill up this spot. I think he's a solid, 3rd, 4th receiver, like a bench play guy. And remember how fast of a start that Adam Thielen got off to last year. I think Bryce Young is going to need those guys who get open quick for him. And I really think Bryce Young's he can't go anywhere but up or be out of the league. So I think there's a chance he can improve. And he was able to support, well, I think Sam Darnold is part, or no, who was their backup last year? Anyway, so I think they can support potentially like a possession type receiver. And Deontay Johnson is way younger than Adam Thielen, where he can keep it up longer and maybe break away after short catches for potential yards after the catch.
Yeah, I concur with that, Doctor.
All right, now we're on to our fallers. These are guys that, it's just in the name there, they either, again, by our personal rankings or just the sentiment around the fantasy football community, these guys are getting a little icy, or at least icier than they were a week or two ago, if not further back. Go ahead and start us off with one of your fallers.
Well, I'm going to start right at the top. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So going into his 5th year, wants to renegotiate his contract, sitting out. So Jamar Chase. I'm gonna just go over the top 6 players here. Wide receivers: CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Saint Brown, AJ Brown. Those are your top 6, and Garrett Wilson. We'll just throw Garrett Wilson in there because he's awesome. At 7, I might put Chase at 7 or 6. I might draft all of those guys before him just because I don't know if he's going to play that week 1 game.
Is that simply because of his contract situation? If he were to sign tomorrow, he moves right back up to 3 or 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. I mean, you got to stack wins whenever you can do it. And to get any of those other players and knowing they're going to play and knowing they're going to give you, 25, 35 points. Yeah. I'm going to drop him in the draft because of that.
Fair enough. So this is definitely a news report listening thing. He's not falling because of injury. He's falling because of circumstance, and that circumstance can change. It hasn't changed as of yet, but it can. So, all right. So I'm going to go to one of my fallers, and this one is weird because Kyren Williams. This player here, I had him as the 4th overall running back behind. Where did I have him exactly? Behind Bijan Robinson. I had him 4th.
You did have him
running back.
high.
That's how high I had him, and it was crazy. Not crazy, but I mean he was in that range. But to put him up there, and it's just between that group. Who's in that group there? Jahmyr Gibbs, Barkley, Jonathan
Etienne
Taylor
Jr. Yep, Derrick Henry.
I think that Etienne and Henry are still behind him, but that other group of Taylor, Gibbs. And
on your list, yes.
Oh, fair enough. Right. Well, this is a follow for me. This is a follow for me. He's still going to be a late 2nd round pick, I think, but he was arguably a chance to be a late 1st round pick, early 2nd round pick, and now it's going to be like he's the bottom of that tier. You're going to let that whole running back group go, and for you might let that next running back group even start before you consider taking him. And I don't know what it is. The fact that they have Blake Corum on the official top of the depth chart, but those things can be deceiving sometimes. The fact that they mentioned him being a potential punt returner
without seeing, we're giving him punt return duties. You don't give your star player punt return duties.
It's probably nothing, but this reminds me a little bit of going into last year, that when the Houston Texans said Dameon Pierce will be our kick returner, and he lost his job so fast. Now, Kyren Williams was so much better than Dameon Pierce was even in his best year. So it's really hard to see this flop, this switch here. So I don't think he's going to fall down all the way, but it's like just very small red flags. But when you're talking about your first running back off the board, or one of your top 15 picks, it's going to drop into 18 or so, I think, for me. What do you think about this situation?
Well, he was never that high on my list. It is a very curious situation, though. I wouldn't have dropped him as much probably as you're going to drop him. But I would definitely bring him down a couple. When I heard the punt return duties, that was the big kind of red flag for me.
That's such a weird thing to worry about, but it is.
Yeah. Especially somebody that sits high up on the draft board, on the RB draft board. Okay, I got one for you. We got one player that we just talked about that's coming up, and Kyren Williams coming down, right?
Right.
Josh Jacobs or Kyren Williams, who you pick?
Oh, I don't have my amended list up here. That's close.
Just off the conversation of what we just.
Wow.
And I'm not going to hold you to it on Sunday, so
Jacobs.
You're good.
I think I'd go Jacobs.
Yeah,
just because I feel like I know what he's going to give to start.
I think that shows the audience how. The listeners, how much he's dropped based off of how much you liked him.
Wow. Yeah.
And how much Josh Jacobs has gone up. Yeah.
Yep. Interesting. All right. So I've got a player here. This is no fault of his own, and you guys can judge me all you want. But I did a mock draft, and this guy was next up on my list, and I couldn't pull the trigger. I had to go, not because I thought anyone else in his position was higher, but I thought that I needed to shift gears to another position, meaning he just dropped down a tier. Instead of being the bottom of one tier, he became the top of the tier below. This is Malik Neighbors. I couldn't take him ahead of the quarterbacks, the Mahomes, Allen, Hurts group. So wherever that falls, third or fourth round, depending on where your league is,
Yeah.
I wouldn't take any of those guys in the second round, for example. So if we got to the third round, it'd be really tough. Again, he didn't fall a lot, but he fell behind a group of another position. So Malik Neighbors is a faller for me, as I just don't trust the rookie on a bad offense with an awful quarterback.
No, stop there right there.
Oh, we have a Daniel Jones apologist here. All right, let's do it.
Listen, Daniel Jones is a true
streamer.
Yes. He's a good quarterback. Okay. He's got lots of little dings and dents.
I'm sorry.
He's a big guy. He's a strong guy. He can run with the ball. He's not graceful all the time. Sometimes his upper body gets ahead of his lower body. But he's still Daniel Jones, man. He's outside of the injuries, nothing has really happened. It might be like a mental block. And once that mental block is gone, it's on, man. But he is coming off the injury. I see where you're going, and I agree.
So I want to say you sold me, but I just can't buy it. So
yeah, right.
I appreciate the sales pitch, and I'm gonna let you live in that world. I'm just gonna stay over here for a little bit. But
that was last year. I lived that last year, and I think I'm gonna move on. But okay, wait. So Neighbors, you got him down there pretty far. You're definitely drafting Harrison Jr. before Neighbors.
Oh yes.
What about Rome Adunze or Worthy?
I would still take Neighbors ahead of all those guys for sure.
Yep.
Dunze is closer, but not close enough. Yeah, Neighbors. He didn't move down in terms of his ranking among receivers. He moved down in rankings among other positions.
Yeah. Overall. Okay.
So he's still that whatever. I don't know what number is. He's still like the 15th receiver, give or take. I don't know what the number is, but yeah.
Yep. Okay. That makes sense. I got him at 11, I think, on my receiving list here. Let me see here. No, I don't have him at 11. What am I talking about? I got him pretty far down. I can't even find his name, actually. Okay, moving on.
Okay. So yeah, go ahead. You give me your next faller here.
Let's see here. I don't know. Falling is so hard because I really don't like to talk so negative about people. Like I want everybody.
You'd rather say people are rising and they're just shifting down.
Yeah, it's kind of like people are falling because other people are rising, not at any fault of their own. Maybe Derek Carr falling a little bit, but I don't know if he was really up there to begin with.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just playing with you. I'm just.
You know who's falling? Jacoby Brissett is falling. Drake May will be the starter. So,
yeah.
Oh wait, did they announce it?
They did. Jacoby Brissett has been named Week 1 starter. Okay. I think they're just their first part of their schedule. First of all, their offensive line is not very good. Their first part of their schedule is difficult, and I think they don't want to rough up the rookie and get him shell shocked before he's ready. I think they're going to let Brissett take the first 15 sacks of the year, and then bring Drake May in week 5, 6, 7, 8 finish the season.
Yeah, let me make a note on this that switch that. Brissett is going up and Drake May is going down, and do not draft any New England Patriots offense. Okay.
Oh yeah, isn't that tattooed on your forearm right there? All right, I'm going to give you a faller here, and this is going to be interesting because I didn't think about this when I was doing this, but I'm going to juxtapose it to one of our risers, Keenan Allen. Some people like to call him Fat Keenan. I don't know if that's fair, but Keenan Allen has had a training camp of not good buzz. I don't know how to phrase that any differently, I guess. And right now he's now has an injury in his foot. Mm-hmm. So he's already coming off of not a big buzz training camp. There's been rumors of him gaining weight, although that's hard to say. I haven't watched any of the Hard Knocks you have. Maybe you can tell me what you think about that. But the foot injury with an older receiver, that's more the news that's more important, relevant here. So I have him falling. And now that I'm looking at this, I might consider Deontay Johnson ahead of Keenan Allen. So what do you think about Keenan Allen? Then you can think about those two players together.
Yeah, so I can see that, but I think Keenan Allen is going to naturally fall as the year goes on. So if you want to just have him fall early before the draft, that's fine. because I think Rome Odunze will come up and be the number 2 target to compete with Moore for the top targets. Who are you comparing him to now?
Deontay Johnson. They're both. Keenan Allen has had a much better career, so I'm not saying that, but they're both similar in that they're the reliable type of receiver for their team. And if the one guy's hurt, does that take a dent on his reliability?
Yeah, I think so. I would still see now it's going to come down to I like both quarterbacks, but I like not having the rookie get the ball to that particular player better. So I think I would stay with Johnson over Keenan. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have another faller you want to share with us, Mr. Bernie?
So based on I don't know, can't remember if we said it or not. Jonathan Brooks is a faller, which helped Chuba Hubbard go up. So he was placed on the NFI list.
Yes.
Again, I'm going to go to you for the acronyms. What does NFI mean?
It's a he was injured not during football activities, non-football injury.
Oh, 3-wheeler accident? Jet
no,
ski?
Well, he has he's coming off an ACL thing, but I think because it happened during his college career, that it didn't happen while he was part of the NFL. So it's not gotcha. Again, so it's almost like not an NFL football injury. It was a football injury.
Yes.
But not related to his current team or current career, I guess.
Gotcha. Just for the designation of where they can put him. Okay.
Right. Because you only have so many roster spots and they have to fall into certain categories. If you can use an NFI guy, you don't have to use a IR spot, for example, or essentially he's on the PUP because he never practiced. Right. So it's the same parameters as the PUP list. I think officially his NFI. It's hard to say. When I looked up who's on the PUP to double check, he showed up on that list. So I think it's that the designation may change. Right. Essentially, he's on the PUP list from an injury that happened prior to him being drafted.
Right. Okay. So Jonathan Brooks is definitely fallen. How far has he fallen for me? Probably sitting on the waiver wire after the draft. I probably won't draft him. I wouldn't draft him.
I think he'll be drafted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he's in college he was a stud. So he's like that second half of the year potential savior, although it is hard for a rookie to come off an injury just because like they usually get better as the year goes on because they're learning the game, not because of, so he can still learn the game without being on the field, but they get these really good rookies, especially the receivers, for example. I know as a running back, they get better because they gain experience as they work out some of their learning the bugs in their learning curve here.
So I've got him around in the same kind of area as Tajay Spears and Jalen Warren, and I would draft both of those guys above him. So
okay, I think that's the right area, honestly. So that's not as low as I would have thought you would have had him, but that's that area. Yeah, you're looking for someone who can help you, and it depends on how you want to look at it. Someone who can help me now, help me later.
Yeah, so maybe
partial season plays.
Right. Maybe for me, he would be on the waiver wire, but for everyone drafting, yes, he's in that tier there.
I got one more guy here, pretty irrelevant. We definitely didn't like him at all to begin with, but it's a little news. I have Ezekiel Elliott going from potentially a 10th, 11th round, 9th to 11th round guy to being almost undraftable as the signing of Dalvin Cook, which who knows what that will actually do, but now it just adds another player who's in the same level. Now you've got the older Ezekiel Elliott. When we had Dowdle was the guy we were actually aiming for here.
Rico.
And I think Rico Dowdle's still the guy here, but that means there's two guys Elliott can fall behind, not just one.
Right.
And I think he's the third. It's hard to say without seeing these guys play. And I know Dalvin Cook didn't have much juice last year. Elliott had some games, but I think these guys are equal enough that I think this almost secures Dowdle as the number one running back in, because it's not a 50-50. Now it's it's almost a 66% in a way. I feel like he's by far better than the room than just he might be better than one guy. He's better than both guys now, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a strong opinion. I would treat him just like how I would treat who we were just talking about, Robinson. Or I'm sorry, Jonathan Brooks. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I think that almost makes Dowdle and Elliott 10th round or later now.
Yeah. They're either at the bottom of that same tier or
Yeah.
the top of the next tier as far as them dropping down.
Did you have any other fallers? I know you're trying not to be the negative side here. Did you have any
Yeah.
more on that?
No, not. I really don't have any big fallers. The Hawkinson, but I don't know his timeline. TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure either. He had his injury because he played most of last year. I think his injury was like week 14ish or so,
Yeah.
give or take. I might be off by a week or two. So he's probably going to miss 7 weeks, 8 weeks kind of thing.
So he might have just fallen off the board because he's a tight end at that point. So, but he definitely had a little juice to him if he would be healthy. So that's really all I got for falling. Though.
Okay, I've got a surprise riser here I didn't tell you about, and this goes to Bernie.
I'm Cuban B. Yes, Cuban B.
Our last episode was a mock draft, and you wouldn't even be able to tell, but Bernie could not see the draft board as we were doing this. He was going it straight from just that's why I was reading out the names so much and kind of cutting them off because he didn't know when they were going, but I needed to keep him abreast of the picks going on. You couldn't even tell, or if you could, it was barely, and he was a master. That was a long episode, and he did it all essentially blind. So kudos to you, Mr. Bernie. A little behind the curtain there. Great job navigating that mock draft last episode.
Well, I'd have to say thank you, and I'm going to throw the compliment right back to you. I rewatched the episode so I could see what was going on behind us.
Yeah,
and you were like an auctioneer, man. You were like calling a horse race or a dog race or something, man. I mean, you were going to town. You had a good flow going. So once the visual and the audio kind of matched up now in my head, I was like, okay, this wasn't bad because I was struggling a little bit. I was like looking for the players and where they were and who was left and stuff without being able to see that board live in action. It was a little tricky. So I appreciate your help though, your leads.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Well, to both of us. Yay.
Yay.
All right. So that's the end of our risers and fallers. Now it is time to get to one of our segments here, tips and tricks.
Tips and tricks.
Or quirks for jerks.
All right. So we are, of course, like we mentioned before, our official Wingman Fantasy Football League draft is this Sunday. I've only been able to do a couple mock drafts myself. I've viewed a few mock draft boards to have an idea because it takes just a little too long, and I've been very busy. Hope to get one or two done by end of tomorrow. But the tip here, at least to start with, whenever you do a mock draft, there's always someone who sabotages it, picking a crappy player early, or the auto picks take your defenses and kickers in round 8 and 9. So the tip here is if you're in a 12-team league for real, do your mock drafts with 14-team and 16-team leagues. One, this will give you a safe idea of who will be available in the rounds that you're picking. And it'll also mask some of those crappy auto picks and sabotage picks. So what I like to do, at least to start with, is to see who I think I can get at a minimum and then work your way up. And by the time you're done, you're like, wow, I got like 2 second-round picks out of this thing. This is great. So start with the harder. It's like going up to bat with a weighted baseball bat. Take your warm-up swings with a little bit of a disadvantage, and that way when the real time comes, it'll feel easy. Do you have any draft day tips that you want to – I know I didn't really set you up for this. Do you have any draft day tips you want to offer?
No, not really. I would say we kind of went over them while we were doing our positional breakdowns. If you're not going to take an elite quarterback, you could probably wait and get quarterback 7 through 11 as a value. Know your league, know your scoring, know your bench positions. Really? Oh, you know what? I do have something.
Yes, go for it.
A question for our commissioner.
Okay.
Can you put your commissioner hat on for me, sir? Can you put a PUP or NFI player on an IR slot?
I believe you can put both. You definitely put the PUP. I believe you can put the NFI as well.
Okay.
The only player we found out last year you couldn't pick, which I haven't tried myself because I'm afraid to drop somebody that I want to keep. In the past, the NA players not available could, but according to Red Sox Nation, that was no longer an option. Yahoo always kind of amends these things, but in the past, you can put players that are considered out for any particular week's game. Once they have the O next to their name, they can slide in the IR spot. Anyone with an IR next to their name, PUP, and I believe NFI as well can all be put. Suspended cannot. If you're suspended, for example, you cannot be put on that IR list.
Right. So that's a big one because that's an extra spot. So when you're looking at your last pick, or maybe even your fourth to last pick, I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there. Look at those PUP players that might be coming back.
All right. That was our tips and tricks for this episode. Now it's time to get into our mailbag.
You've got mail. You've got mail. Wingman Fantasy Football.
Mailbag!
So we've got at least a couple. I want to thank very much user Loungefly leaving a comment on our YouTube channel. And if you leave any comments on our YouTube channel or a Wingman Fantasy Football page, you will get it read out if it's appropriate to do so. So this one comes from Loungefly, and he says, very convenient that the video footage of the draft drawing has been mysteriously erased, lost, however you want to say it. I don't know what to say. I recorded it. I woke up the next day and I recorded over it because I turned the camera on as I charged it. I had 12 hours of the ceiling and no draft drawing footage, and I apologize. That's all I can say.
Wow. He really was watching the episodes. I thank you, Loungefly, and I appreciate that you are watching and leaving a comment. I trust the draft order procedure. That's how we're going to say that. The picking, I trust it because I know that the other people are not colluding with you. They probably want to see you lose. So they get a kick out of, doing things the right way. So hats off to those other folks that are there in the room with you. And we can talk to them and ask them specifics once we get there this weekend.
So I'll tell you how I do it, just so you guys have an idea. I don't know if I might have mentioned this before. I take two hats. And in one hat, I put numbers 1 through 12. And the other hat, I put the names of all of our players. And I don't pick them at all because I may notice how I fold them up and I don't want to even have a thought about it. So I have my two kids, my son and my daughter. My daughter picks the numbers. My son picks the names. They pick one at a time. They say number 8 goes to, and they read the name. And that's how I put them in. So it's a random drawing with two hats, one of numbers, one of names. I will say that the first name out of the hat this time around was lionized, and he was picked 10. And the last number out was number 11 for Ben. Jimerson's Red Sox Nation was the second to last number drawn. So it came down to the last one was going to be 2 or 11. And the 2 went to Red Sox Nation.
Wait, I'm sorry. Did you just say that Lionize was the first name out of the hat, but because you picked two hats, he wasn't the first pick?
There's a number hat and a name hat. So the first number picked was 10. The first name was Reggie.
So I guess you're going to get a couple more comments. You might get something slid into your DMs. You might, I would not open any envelopes with any sort of...
Oh, God. It's double random. It's double random testing.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
I thought it was...
I think it's fair. I just, if I was that guy...
You just put a threat out there.
Guy.
You just put a bounty on my head. I don't appreciate that. All right. I've got one more entry into the mailbag here, and this one comes from Lionize, the aforementioned person who's going to poison my mail. This one comes from Lionize, and he asks, where do I put in, how do I address the rules committee when bringing up suggestions for new rules for the Wingman Fantasy Football League? And we don't have an official avenue for that. In years past, I know Reggie and Bernie have discussed as they come to me, and they're like, how about this? And they brought up changing the flexes a couple years ago, and that was not a problem. We put a couple votes when they wanted to raise the price last year. So I listened to you guys, and we put it to a vote. We raised our entrance price. This last time, I've been a little busy, and I didn't have time to get the time for to find out what your suggestions were, if any, and to get appropriate voting time to do that to do that. But I did notice when I was setting up finalizing the settings, Yahoo did add a new setting called median scoring. I don't know, in case you guys are unfamiliar. Right now we play head-to-head scoring, where if I'm playing Bernie and I score 100 points, he scores 90, I get a win, he gets a loss. In median scoring, if I play Bernie, I get 100 points, he gets 90, but 6 other teams get under 90 points, he will get a win and a loss. He'll get a win for being in the top half of the scoring for the league for that week, and the loss for his head-to-head matchup. So teams that have the best score of the week can get 2 wins. And if you said that it's more to protect teams from if they have, like, I was a third highest scorer this week, but I played against the second highest score. You're gonna get 1 win and 1 loss, and over time, your winning percentage will reflect closer to what the value of your team is. I've never done it. I'm not saying it's good, but that's an option. So if you want to maybe bring that up for next year's, I'm willing to consider it. What say you about that particular rule, and any other rules you might suggest for next year? This year we're locked in. Sorry, guys.
Okay. Well, I think that there probably should be some sort of format to get the new rule request in, or a rule change in, or something like that. Just something a little more structured, so there isn't any saltiness coming into.
Well, that's why I don't like to do it during this year for someone who's losing. Like, we should change this. So definitely before the next season starts, I need to get that out earlier and start the correspondence earlier, so we have a block of time.
Exactly, and then once that time frame is designated, then that's okay. As far as what the median points, I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like we're straying too far away from whoever has the most points wins. And if you got the most points, or if you got high points and the other team got more points, then they win. It's kind of like the basics of 1 beats 0, 10 beats 9, but you get something for 9 because everybody else got less than 9, even though they didn't play you. So it's one of those things. I don't know. I would lean not to implement that, but I'm just one lonely, not great fantasy football bronze tiered player.
So the way I would look at that particular rule, again, that's not for this year. I would say that's I'm a agnostic, I guess. Like if 7 out of 10 players, so let's do it. I'm like, I guess we're doing it. I'm not going to block it. I'm not going to promote it. So I'm not, me, I'm kind of stubborn. I like to stay where we're at, we all know that you're kind of stubborn, Michael. Yes. But with your suggestions the last couple of times, we have made some minor changes, and I'm doing the best I can. I'm fighting some impulses.
No, you're good.
And they've been for the better, to be honest with you. So I appreciate that.
So what if we implemented a strategy for making, changing or eliminating something in our league that, it's kind of like, remember that we used to play this game, back in college, where we'd play with cards and you'd go around the table and whoever was sitting in that first position got to make a rule. Yeah. What if we have like the league winner decide, should we submit a new rule? Should we submit a change for a rule? Should we submit removing some portion of our thing? And they're the only ones that get to submit it for the next year. And then everybody that plays votes. So they don't get to change anything, but they get to submit the thing.
Gotcha. I'm not necessarily against that, but I will say one thing just in general with any rule change. Yeah, we are locked into the parameters of, in this case, our Yahoo League. So if you want, I want to do this. I don't know how to do that.
Yes,
I can't do that. I'm sorry. I can email them and say, add this rule, but I'm not doing that either. So it's one of those things like I'd have to know what the new parameters potentially are, to even make a change.
But it would be simple things like, can we do full point PPR? Can we do -4 interceptions? Can we, little point things, positional things, bench spot numbers, like little things like that. Nothing crazy.
All right. Guys, I want to thank you all so very much. Thank you to my co-host here, Mr. Bernie Team B. We're going to have the idea is we're going to find out how it's going to go. It's going to be a little on the fly, as Sunday is going to be a very busy day for me, but we are going to try to have a draft day special recorded on Sunday. It should be released by Monday, so you can see the initial reactions of the Wingman Fantasy Football League members and see how they respond to their, if anyone's on tilt, if anyone had a great draft in their opinion, and we can then follow along through the season. So keep a lookout for that. With that being said, guys, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube Music. You can find our video feeds on wingmanfantasyfootball.com. wingmanentertainment.net/podcast. Woo, excuse me. Let me get this out of here. Pardon me. And of course, on wingmanfantasyfootball.com/YouTube. Go ahead and hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. Our members have now increased by 20% in the last 2 weeks. We are now up 2 whole subscribers, up to 12 from 10. 20% is 20%. So
Nice.
With that being said, guys, may your glasses be full, your mugs stay frosty.
And draft wisely, drink responsibly, and we'll see you next time.
Very good. All right, guys.